Okay, welcome to TWA 1.2. So this is the video lecture that is going to go with this unit, and ideally it's going to work as a preface. I hope you watch this and then watch through the snapshots in the actual chapter. I will do some of the explaining to prep for the snapshot videos and also for the activities at the end. And if there's anything missing, I will add another video wherever it seems to fit best. So 1.2 is, well, we call it ASL 101, but ultimately it's just sort of an introduction to the language, a little bit more information to guide you forward. We've got the snapshots are going to be some common misconceptions, the alphabet and how we treat hand shapes, basic grammatic structure, blah, blah, blah. You can read all the things over here. As with all the chapters, you're going to see the activities. We'll do some of them in class, and some we will not do. I have other ways of introducing some of the concepts that I like better for the situation we got and for the setup we have. So something you may see as an activity, we might not do. My preference, I'm going to do it the way I want to. And then at the end, so far you learn what. So it's a review of what we've covered. So I think each of the snapshots is pretty clear. I know that eventually I have to get voiceovers for most of these, and I don't have them yet, and I will. One of the big things I want to talk about is the alphabet versus hand shapes. In English, we think about the alphabet as the building blocks. It's sort of the basic it's the basic written form of English, and we build from there. In ASL, it's different. Hand shapes are not letters. Hand shapes can be used to represent letters, but it's not as simple as just building from letters and sounds. We have 5 parameters, which I think I usually speak of in the very first class to kind of give you an idea of what you're in for. But we'll go into a little bit more detail in this lecture. So I don't want you to think about the hand shapes as just being letters. Hand shapes represent a host of different things, some of which are letters. Sometimes the same hand shape can represent a letter, a number, an object. There's so many different things, and in context, it will make sense. We'll talk about the basic grammatic structure of ASL. That it's the most basic sentence structure is switched from English, and I'll explain that in a bit as well, in a little second. So not just the hands. That will explain a lot about. It's not just what you do with your hand. Your face is going to be a big part. We talk about there being 5 parameters. In this book, it is one of the first to introduce a 6th parameter, which is proximalization. And hopefully I'll introduce or at least be able to explain the meaning of proximalization a little bit more clearly than has been previously. Hey, excuse me. I've been in this office in nearly a year, so it's really dusty. So not just the hands. And then they'll go through the list of important signs that they will be using in the videos for TWA ASL, which is things like homework, study, stuff like that. We'll go through all those. And then we'll go into a little bit more of the parameters. So that's just an overview of this chapter and what's going to be in this lecture. Basic signs. Hold on, I have to... Sorry. I used to have a little control screen that I could control the recording, and now I'm not seeing it anymore. Here we go. and I can't move that. Okay, well, okay. I think I figured that out. All right, so when we're talking about basic signs, let me get back over to, yeah. All right, click. Put this up here. Sorry. In future years, I'll be able to edit this video down, but for right now, we're just doing it kind of on the fly. Okay, so let's look at some basic signs. You'll start to notice patterns in sets of signs, things that have similar meanings, and the applications of them. So one of the signs we're going to look at, or one of the pairs, is different and same. So for same, we're going to do this. It's a Y hand shape. It's this kind of hand shape. And we're going to slide it back and forth. Notice that it doesn't twist like in the sign for party or play. It slides side to side, kind of like a sliding glass door. I don't know. And what it functions as is two index fingers pointing to two different things. You and you are the same, right? Or you and me, we're the same. Or we're all the same. So we're just pointing towards all of them. So that's why we use this handshake. When we're doing active listening, when we're doing that back channeling, we will use this a lot for if someone says something, you're like, oh, me too. We just go, me too. Yeah, me too. I'm the same way. Or, oh, you're just like that person. Wow, that's cool. So we can use this in a lot of different things. Now, it's different motion than, oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, we're the same. Okay. As opposed to the sign for different, where we're going to cross the streams. It's like Ghostbusters. Don't cross the streams. We want to do an X, and then you're going to bring it off like this. Different. Oh, different. You two are different. So for different, you need that. You two, different. We can't sort of apply. Some sign languages will do that, where, like with same, I incorporate the two things we're talking about in the sign. Different's not like that. We have to do you and me, we're different. Okay. So that's same, different. And there are many applications of both of them, but you could say we're all the same. This is a sign for same old, same old. Like, every day is the same. Same old, same old. This is a good answer for how are you? You can go, same old, same old. We did remember and forget in 1.1. Remember, and best way I can suggest is that you're taking whatever information you have in your head and locking it in. Oh, I remember. Oh, I will remember. And forget, it looks like she's signing, but the sign for forget is wipe the whiteboard. Imagine your forehead's a whiteboard and you wipe it off. Forgot. Oh, sorry, you forgot. Okay. Attempt or try comes from the gesture of go ahead and do it. So I will include this in the vocab at the end in the review, but go ahead and you'll see try or attempt. Oh, try it. Just go ahead and try. Discuss and talk about is this. Tap the index finger sort of sideways into the palm of your hand. And this actually comes from an older sign of debate, where this side would have their say, then this side, this. And you can see how much more complicated if you're switching hands. It's cumbersome. And language has a way of streamlining itself to be easier to produce. In English, God be with you became goodbye, or now bye-bye. So, or just bye. So you can see how language changes, and you can see that reflected if you study any language over time. So in ASL, we just now use this for discuss. And you can say, we'll discuss that. But you could just say, oh, we'll discuss, you and me, let's talk about that later. Okay. You can also, you'll see talk about, oh, we have to talk. Or we need to talk. We usually do it with fours, talk. This is the sign for like, oh, he's talking. And it has to do with speech more than sign. For sign, we adapt this to, I'm just going to switch, boom. So you're holding something, you throw it. That's one of the signs for we chatted in sign language. Okay. To do the sign for review, I want to talk a little bit about lists, because it'll make the sign make a little bit more sense. When we're talking about, say, a list of things of I've got 5 siblings, or there are 5 books in a series, we will oftentimes use our hand. It could be 4, 3, 2, a list of 1, I guess. There can be more, but we'll start with looking at 4 and 5 just as an example. I would list each of the things, and then every time I pointed later in the discussion to this one, I mean the 3rd book of the series. If we're talking about the Harry Potter series, we could talk about Prisoner of Azkaban, right? That was the 3rd one, right? Goblet of Fire, I think that's right. So we would establish what they are, and then anytime we pointed, we've got that pronoun to refer to it. We use the same thing in space. I could say something's over there and something. My brother is over there. My sister is over there. And then every time I would point, I'm referring to either my brother or my sister. So if I've just given you a list and now I want to review them, I will look at each thing. And a very easy way of doing it is, imagine I'm looking at this one, and then I look at this one, look at this one, look at this. So I'll bring this hand with look at up this way. Review. I'm looking at each thing in the list. You'll sometimes see it with an R for review, but that's the idea, is it's look at. Okay, I'll do it from the side. You can see review, review, review. Okay. The sign for perfect comes from the next sign for correct. So you're going to take 2 index fingers and you're going to do it at 90-degree angles, right angles here, perpendicular. Right. It's not the fingers hitting. If you hit the finger sideways, you're gonna hyperextend. Not hyperextend. You're gonna dislocate one of the joints, especially if you're really emphatic about it. All right. Okay. You're gonna hit the hands. It's kind of like the old sign for work, which we now sign work mostly. So work. Right. Right. Notice meaning-wise, there's a difference between correct and right turn. So I'm going to turn to the right, or so just because it's right has 3 different meanings, they all could be signed differently. And we also have right, which is if you take the flat of the hand like this and then start out on it and then slide it up. That's more like the Bill of Rights, or you have the right to remain silent, for example. So right is this. Perfect is kind of close. You're going to take an F hand shape in both. You're going to pinch there and go perfect. It's almost like you're setting something very fine. I've got a very thin pin and I'm sticking it in something. Perfect. It kind of is like from the English hearing gesture of okay, perfect. Wrong is going to use the Y hand shape, and you're going to touch it to your chin. Wrong. Most often with this head shape. So right, wrong. Sorry, wrong. You can even twist it wrong to it's almost the verb form of make an error. Wrong. Get out of here. And then last is a sign for example. Like I'm going to show you an example, and example and show are basically the same sign, where if you're saying, I'm going to show you this thing. See, what I like now on TikTok is there are a lot of videos where someone will go, look at this, and all of a sudden there's a link, or it shows on their hand. Basically, it's the same thing we do in ASL. We go show. I'm going to show you this. or you can show me this. So it's directional. You can show, look at this. That's what I'm showing you. All right. So practice each of those, and then you'll see them in the videos during the snapshots. Now we'll talk about grammar, where we talked a little bit about this in the classroom, that ASL has a different basic structure than English. In English, we normally do subject, verb, object. I go to the store. I ate the sandwich. So that's the basic structure. And basic with a B, and it's underneath. If this was the floor of your house, this would be the basement. And the sign for basement is this. Here's a person walking around in your basement. No, that's not creepy at all. So basement, basic, and then signs, basic signs. I don't know if in the last one I talked about, I think I did, talk about what a sign for language is. Language and sentence are a similar sign. And you're going to take the F's and you're going to pull a thread. Language, sign language. We also use this for sentence. In ASL, you'll notice there are a lot of times where one example becomes the sign for the general. We use this as the sign for alcohol, but it's specifically the sign for whiskey, or like whiskey, bourbon, scotch, something like the hard liquors. But it's also used to apply to all alcoholic beverages. So in this case, we use this for sentence, but it also applies to language. It's a specific and a general. The sign we're going to use for structure is the building blocks. I want you to picture the building blocks. We're going to make two fists, and you're going to go boom, boom, boom. And it doesn't matter what order. It's like you're putting the pieces together. So that's structure. And sometimes people use this for grammar. Sometimes people use this for grammar. It kind of depends on what you're talking about. Grammatical structure. In breaking them down, we could get really complex in the order of a sentence, but for right now, we're going to keep it really simple. We're going to say that there's an object, and we're just going to use an O, and what we do with all acronyms or abbreviations, we just will hold that letter. Just kind of do a wave or even a circle. Object, subject, verb. OSV. And in the next slide, I'll talk about those grammatical structures, but right now, I just want you to get used to those signs for object, subject, and verb. When we're talking about the two languages, we're going to go back and forth between ASL and English. And you could do sign language, or you can fingerspell and do ASL. Now, at first, you're going to do ASL because you're still learning the letters. Eventually, you're going to go ASL. And in slow motion, ASL. And because we rarely stop in the middle of a word, we don't stop, then just do. Once you get into actual signing at speed, it'll just be ASL, ASL. And if you notice, there's a little pullback. I start with an A, I pull a little bit back as the thumb moves in front, and then I come back out for L, ASL, ASL, ASL. You can always tell an ASL one student because they're like, and once people get going, then they start to go ASL, ASL. And then someone who's been doing it for a little bit, ASL, I'm learning ASL. Nice and smooth. And my chair falls back. Sign for English. And it's weird, and I don't know where it necessarily comes from. But the image I've always had in my head is a proper English gentleman will have his umbrella hooked over his wrist. English, 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 English. If you want to think about it as grabbing the pinky meat, then you can do that. So that's English. So now the grammatic structure. In English, as I said, we do subject, verb, object. Most usually, we can manipulate the heck out of it if we want to have a certain effect, if we want to highlight certain information. There's many different cases that we can use and tenses. At its basic level, we would say, I'm going to the store, SVO, or I go store. So SVO, subject, the person doing the action, verb, the action, and the object, either what the action's being done to or the destination of that verb. And ASL switches things around. It makes visual sense where the English version, SVO, makes auditory sense. It sounds right. For OSV, which ASL does, the object, subject, verb, it makes sense because you're presenting all of the objects, all of the players, and then the verb, the action that takes place. So, for example, Bob and Sue went on a date. Bob and Sue. Well, actually, that would be two subjects. Bob met Sue. So Bob is one, Sue is another person, and then they meet. And in fact, the reason why we do the order OSV as opposed to SOV is because most often the subject is the one doing the verb. Always. But it'll affect some signs. So if I say, Bob met Sue, Bob met. Because we've got Sue stationary, waiting around for this man of her dreams for the blind date. And then Bob met her. So I would set up what something's going to be done to, who's going to do it, and then what was done. The sandwich example that I said, if I was like sandwich, and sandwiches, here are two pieces of bread, and I hold it up to my mouth, but it has nothing in it, so I put some filling in. And the palms are both facing my face, if that helps position this. So it's just sandwich. Sandwich, I eat. So it's Yoda speak. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's Yoda. It's how Yoda sets up sentences. And that was a linguistic choice they made to make him sound alien, is to give him that. Some other languages do that, and I'm not as familiar with Spanish in it. I do know that when I was working with people who know Yiddish, that was sometimes ways they would construct sentences, even in English, as a bleed over. So OSV is more ASL. ASL will also use SVO, but you already know that structure. You're already familiar with it. So you don't really have to spend that much time working on that. I will recommend working on OSV so that you can get comfortable with it, be able to produce it spontaneously, and then you've got both of them ready. You are going to sign some things SVO in casual conversation. That's cool. You'll always have that ready. Was there something else I wanted to say about it? No, I think that's good. We will add more features to this simplified sentence. Like, we don't have time. We don't have tense. We're not going to talk about any of that. We don't talk about descriptors, adjectives, and adverbs. We'll talk about that later. But for right now, I want you to look at SVO, OSV. What I was going to say was, one thing that will help is if you write down a sentence you want to say in English, keep it simple. Keep it present tense. That will help. So in the now, I am doing this, or I do this, even if it feels infantile. Then figure out what's the verb, who's doing it, and what's the verb being done to. And then you've got SVO. And then move the object to the beginning. Sandwich, me eat. For me, that helped me to be able to visualize language, to put it on the page, so that later, if I needed to sign it, I could see what I'd written on the page in my mind's eye, and I could just sign that. Everybody may have a different way of remembering stuff like that. So by all means, if something else works for you, that's great. If you had experience with other languages and you knew an exercise that would help, that's great. I also want to point out that we use capital letters for ASL. It's not a written form of ASL. It's a cheat sheet, a code, so that we can remember what we signed and in what order. So if you do the English sentence with capitals at the beginning, at the right place, and then small letters and include punctuation, that's English. And then if right below it you write in all caps the signs that you're going to use in that order, then it's easy when you look back on your notes to go, oh, this is the English and this is the ASL sign translation of it. And I do it as a mechanical thing where I'll write a sentence, figure out what the parts are, move them around, and then I'll sign what I just wrote. And the more comfortable you can get with that process on paper, the quicker it will become a natural process in your head where you won't have to write it down. I still use it all the time when I'm translating plays for performance. If I'm translating Midsummer Night's Dream, I will have copious notes of here's the English line right here, and then here's the ASL for that same line, and I will work my way through the script. So the next section is navigating TWA ASL, and really I could explain them all again here, but they're very clear in the video, and it's one of the few videos where they actually give you words that we've seen so far, where they give you words and show you the signs for them. The one thing I will point out is that some of the vocab is different words than the English words we would use. For example, home, the sign for work is this, but they're signing home study as opposed to homework. I would recommend getting to know both. Homework. You'll see people sign homework, and you will see people in here sign home study. Home study makes more sense because it's not really work in the same sense that like doing a worksheet or something. So take a look at what they've got. They use this for video, which we use most commonly for like film. You will see a lot of people do this for video. Either one works. This is a much older sign for film, the hand crank movies, but it got used for video as opposed to cinema, if that makes sense. Upload, download. You'll also sometimes see with these two pairs of fingers, upload, download. I'm going to grab it and pull it down from the cloud. Click, drop down menu. So here's the mouse click, and wherever the cursor was, a menu drops down. So that makes sense. We're going to do an assignment on Go React of getting to know you. We did introductions in the live classroom, but so it'll be slightly different from this. And because we're doing it on Go React and you don't know that many signs yet, I'm going to say you're allowed to voice. I'll put it all in the instructions. Eventually we'll get to the point where you can just do it and sign. But right now you don't have enough. You don't have enough vocab, and we're not going to be in the same room that we can act stuff out quite the same. So we're just going to breeze past this. So the sign parameters, the parts of speech, if you will, in sign, how you can break down a sign to analyze it. I've changed the order from what they present, and I did it because this is the order that they've had published studies, and I think it shows it's a clearer way of looking at things, historically speaking, and we can talk about it. The hand shape. Obviously, whatever hand shape you're using is an important thing, and if you change the hand shape, you change the meaning of the sign. So one person walking down the street, two people walking down the street, three people walking down the street, and you can do that up to 5 people walking down the street. And then past 5, we can't do it that specifically. 6 people walking down the street still looks like 3. 9 people walking down the street still looks like 3 people. It can be confusing. 11 people walking down the street looks like one person hopping and popping up, right? So some hand shapes don't lend themselves to certain meanings. So, for example, using 1 to 5, if you change those hand shapes, it can change the meaning of how many people are walking down the street. The location is where in signing space the sign happens. If you change the location, you change the meaning. And a pair of signs that we could look at are father, mother, father and mother. If you change that location, if you go to the upper half of the head, which is tends to be the male signs are up here, versus the lower half, the female signs. So mother, father. The sign for parents is this. Next is the movement. Does a sign move? And if so, where does it move and in what direction? That can really change the meaning. I could give you something, you could give it to me. I could show you something, you could show it to me. The palm orientation. The sign for good is this. So it's you kiss your hand and you lay it down flat, palm up for both hands. Good. If you switch it to palm down as it lands, it means bad. So changing the palm orientation can change the meaning of signs. If I do this, it means the thing to the left. If I do this, it means the thing to the right. Okay. Okay. Next is non-manual markers, facial expressions. And it's anything that's not just the hands. So it could be my eyebrows going up, my eyebrows going down. When I sign a yes/no question, do you want coffee? My eyebrows go up. If I'm like, who are you? Who are you? My eyebrows go down. So those are non-manual markers. It can also be if you flick your finger like this, it's the number 11, you have understand and not understand. So again, the head movement is a change in non-manual markers, and it changed the meaning. So those are things to look for. The last one's a little bit confusing. There's not that much research out about proximalization. And what it deals with, in very general terms, is the ease of signing. When people are learning sign language, especially prevalent in little kids, is big muscular things tend to be the first things learned. And the last things learned are tiny little articulations. Most beginning signers do this, and they're not really using their joints very well. More skilled signers, fluent signers, native signers, will sign. You can even sign tiny little things. We talk about it in terms of gross motor skills down to fine motor skills. So got the big stuff all right, but I'm making mistakes in the signs versus some things can be signed, but there's really specific signing going on, or river flowing down. So that's one way of looking at proximalization. It also affects the evolution of signs, where I talked about the sign for debate. That is using the gross motor, the proximal joints that are closest to the body. That's a lot of work, and people don't want to work so hard. So we get more efficient. We don't want to say as many syllables, so we come up with contractions. Cannot. That's too much work. Can't. So much. Half the work right there, right? So a similar thing will happen with signs. Is if a sign evolves, it'll go from being big gross motor skills to distal, the distant joints. That's so much easier to sign than this. And you don't have that look of panic on your face when you're doing this. So this is a current area of study where they're talking about how do signs change over time, and how do people learn signs? So proximalization, is it close to your body? Is it far away? Does it use a lot of joints, or does it just use one joint far away from the body? And then we will do some activities in class where we're identifying the differences. What this activity is, I will go through a list of things and show 2 different signs. You don't know the signs, but you tell me if they're the same or if they're different. It gets really boring really quickly. So I'll incorporate it in the discussion in class. So much easier, although expect it in the videos and the quizzes whenever. they can spring it on you. And at each class, I'm introducing a new conversational starter. So for this being 1.2, the one I want to get away from the same, different. In the conversation starter, they're talking about, do I have the same? And then I'll point to an object. You'll watch the video of a guy going, hey, do you have the same thing I got? And then they discuss that briefly. The sentence I want to look at for conversation starters is going to seem more complex. I'm going to ask, what did you do last weekend? We've already done, how are you? So the next one we will often use as a conversation starter in class is, what'd you do last weekend? Or what'd you do since I last saw you? So the what'd you do is a really easy sign. You're going to take your two fingers and just sort of pinch, pinch, pinch. Technically what you're doing is you're spelling do, but palm up. Do. And then we know the sign for the past. And we're not doing last as in final, right? What did you do on the final weekend before the earth exploded? We're talking about past. So do, past. And then weekend makes a lot of sense if you think about this being a wall calendar, and the row of blocks inside, the row of squares, is the week. So you're going to take 1 week and brush it across your palm, out past your fingertips. 1 week, and then drop it for end. Weekend or weekend. So do, past weekend. Or as I pointed out earlier, we put the WH question at the end. So the best way of signing it is past weekend, what'd you do? Eyebrows go down. And really, eyebrows should go up on past weekend because we're introducing a topic. One other structure, if we were to go back up to the OSV SVO, is you can look at these sentences like a topic. I bring up a topic, and then I'm going to tell you what happens. The sandwich I ate, yum. So sometimes it's hard to pick out in a written sentence what's the subject, what's the object, it can be confusing. But if you can say, oh, okay, this is what I'm talking about, and this is the topic, and this is the action or the emotion or the observation or whatever. So store, that's the topic. I'm going to talk about the store. What happened at the store? I went to it. Okay. So another way of looking at these is topic comment. So So the next thing we're going to do is a question in class. I'll say, past weekend, what'd you do? And I might point to you, or if it's very clear I'm talking to you, I might just go right into do. So I want you to practice this on your own. Past weekend, eyebrows up. What'd you do? Eyebrows down. What did you do? I feel like Gilbert Gottfried. So now we do the review part. So far, you learn what? So far, remember you're pointing to the past and you bring it up to the now. So far, you learn what? And we can do the same thing with the eyebrows. So far, you learn what? Or so far, you learn what? Okay? So you can see how we're starting to use that same structure again, ending with what? We've got different, same as, same. Remember, forget. Again, and I usually pair please with that because those two usually go together in conversation. Again, please. Would you repeat yourself, please? Attempt or try, and also go ahead. Go ahead. You first. Discussion. Talk. Discuss. Talk. Sign. Review. Remember, you got the list, and you look. Perfect and right. Error. Wrong. And show or example? Show me. The show me state. Basic. Signs. Grammar. Structure. Grammatical structure, syntax. OSV or SVO. ASL. We haven't done American. We'll probably get to that later. It's the hands interlaced. If you ever played with Lincoln logs, this is, I believe, a reference to like log cabins because they were so popular in the colonies, especially in the 1800s when the language was first established. So, American Sign Language, and then English. Worksheet, I believe that's the one they use, and homework or homework, snapshots, dictionary or dictionary, like you're turning page by page, looking something up. Dictionary. Sometimes you'll see it with a D. I tend to do it with a thumb. Dictionary. Film, either one of these, film or video. Right? You're cranking that hand crank. Watch. We can do it 3 different ways. There's to see something. Oh, I saw that. I saw that movie. You could watch. Watch me. I'm watching you. If the palm is forward, see the palm orientation that we talked about? If the palm is forward, it means I'm watching. I'm putting some action into it. Versus see, which is kind of passive. So if the back of the hand is facing forward, it's like, we'll see. Like my mom always used to say, we'll see, when it meant we're never going to do anything with this. I just want to shut you up. So, I saw that. Oh, cool. I was watching carefully as the person walked down the road. One other way that is used a lot with media, like I watched a movie or I watched TV, it's similar to this, but instead of these 2 fingers, you're going to use these 2 fingers. So I watched that football game. I watched that movie. I watched TV. It tends to be very passive. It's referring to a very passive activity where I'm like sitting there going, yeah, I watched the movie. Didn't like it. There were too many people. Couldn't keep track of all the names. My uncle hates that. Anyway, so watch. It looks like you're holding a remote. So this is watch. So see, look at or watch, and watch. Binge watch or something like that. This is one where you're definitely armchair quarterbacking. I would watch it. I went to the game and I watched, but I was watching from home. Why did I switch into that accent? That's really weird. Anyway, to record, this is the camera, right, recording me. Upload or upload, download or download. Click, boom. Have to click, and then drop down menu. Cool. And then we did hand shape. Location, this is sign for where, or location, where you would just sort of gesture. Where does it take place? Where does it happen? Movement, so sort of grab the chess pieces and move them around. Palm orientation, I need to watch their video again to see which one they're using. There are a couple of different signs we can use. Po. Non-manual markers. Most of the time I sign it this way, non-manual markers, facial expressions. Or body movement. And proximalization, we use this. It's 2 fingers bent and we go proximalization. So it goes from the shoulder to the wrist and back up. And that's the end. So that's an encompassing thing of the entire chapter. Take a look at the videos in the snapshots. And if there's anything that I'm missing or anything you want me to add to this, let me know and I'll do an appendix.